Okay, so today we are doing equivalent fractions and decimals. Now that sounds like really hard. It sounds really scary, but it's actually not. Because we know that this first part of the word equi is actually part of equal. Equal. So this must mean equal fractions and decimals. Now we know that a fraction, like let's say 1 over 10. 1 over 10, we know the equivalent decimal of 1/10 is 0.1. We know that. And we know that 10 over 100 would be 0.10. But how do we make something like 1 over 10 and 10 over 100 the same? Now, I'm going to show you. So we can turn 6 over 10 into 60 over 100. And we can turn 60 over 100 into 6 over 10. It can go both ways. And how do we do that? We cross out a 0 or we add a 0. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to take my blue marker and I'm going to do that right now. So, if I were to cross out 1 0 at the top and 1 0 at the bottom, this would suddenly become 6 over 10. If instead I decided I wanted to do it the opposite way, and I wanted to keep all the zeros because I like having a lot of zeros at the end of my number, I can actually just draw 2 zeros at the end of 60 and 100. And suddenly they're the same. And you can actually do the same thing with decimals. So the decimal for 6 over 10, and I'll erase this so that we can see it, the decimal for 6 over 10 is 0.6. 6 over 10 is 0.6, because all we do to figure that out is put a decimal right before the 6. And we do the same thing with 60 over 100. We put the decimal right before the 6, add a 0 in the front, and it becomes 0.60. But if I just add a 0, all of a sudden they're the same. If I take away a 0, all of a sudden they're the same. So what we're going to be doing is making equivalent fractions, and the fast and simple way to do it is start with whatever number you're working with. So if you're starting with 60 over 100, you know to make an equivalent fraction, you cross out a 0 at the top and a 0 at the bottom. If you're starting with 6 over 10, you know to add a 0 at the top and add a 0 at the bottom. And that goes the same for decimals, except you're only adding or taking away 1 0 to make them equal. And you always do the 0 after the decimal. Always the 0 after the decimal. The one before is a whole number. If you have a whole number, you leave it the same. The one after, you can take away or add. Now, let's talk about this problem. So, 0.30. 0, so we could actually write it as 0.30 because that's how a lot of you usually say it, but it's the same no matter what. 0.30, 0 wholes, and 0.30 is equivalent to what? Well, I know that I have the 0 at the end, so I can cross him out. And I'll just do a little dotted line. Excuse me. I have that little dotted line right there, so I'm going to pretend cross out that 0. Oh, what does that become? 0.3. We just converted it and made them equal. Now, let's do the fractions. 30 over 100 is equivalent to, we started with 100, so we need to take away zeros. 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top. And that becomes 3 over 10. Simple and easy. I'm going to do another conversion with you guys in the next video. So watch the next one to find out what we're converting next.